Perfect.
Stanzianowski, ready?
Let her rip. Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stanziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, chef, father, six, and best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbo. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stanziano, you see the smile on my face? Do you know why I have a smile on my face today?
I'm going to tell you why before I get your answer, because your division that you are leading the charge on, Jake and Gino, is the only division in our company that has their customer experience and customer journey done. So that's why you're going to rub it in my face today. But hit me. What do you got?
See, wasn't even going there, actually. we have a two-timer today, and the reason why we've brought this expert on is because he fundamentally shifted my mind on what customer service and what customer experience is. I had a restaurant for 20 years. I was winging it. If I had met our guest 15 years ago, I'd have 30 restaurants right now. Thank God I didn't meet him. Thank God I met him now. But I mean, guys, I'm being honest. Once again, pen, paper, you're going to take a bunch of notes. This is so relevant to what's going on right now. The topic is we're going to be talking about generating long-term loyalty. And there's so many ways about it. This is not a wingable thing. This is a framework. We're going to present the framework to you. I'm going to hold up the book. Never lose a customer again. Everybody needs to go to Amazon. And now that you have time, you can start working on your customer journey. Jake, let the bio rip, my friend.
Here's the nuts and bolts. Today's guest is Joey Coleman. Joey is the best-selling author of Never Lose a Customer Again and the book that G-Dad just showed. He's also the founder and chief experience composer of Design Symphony, a customer experience branding firm that assists corporations, nonprofits, small businesses, and associations in creating breathtaking interactions for all their customers. Hey, without further ado, the big guy, Joey, welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Jake. Thanks, Gino. Excited to be back and hanging out with you guys. You definitely win the prize for the most energetic host of any podcast that I'm on. I get the pleasure of being on a lot of podcasts, and it is a true delight to be back with you guys and with your listeners today.
Do you know why? It's very easy, because we love talking to all our guests, because all our guests have something to share. They bring a ton of value, and they've been in the space, and we've most worked with you. I mean, I was at a weekend with you back in July of last year. We sat down, you actually took the time, and it was amazing. You totally transformed the way we look at customers and the way the repeat customers, the way you bring a customer on. After 100 days, you should be engaged with that customer. So for me, I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Gino.
You did starting the lawnmower.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So here's the question. Let's lay the foundation.
Yeah.
Let's paint the picture. Put the bricks down for the yellow brick road. Why is the customer experience so important?
So I think that the customer experience, and this is supported by research, this is supported by data, this is supported by just if we think about it a little bit critically, how we take care of our customers is what determines whether our customers stay with us, right? So all the research shows that in the first 100 days of the relationship, somewhere between 20 and 70% of your new customers will decide to stop doing business with you. Let's stop and think about that for a second. 20 to 70% of the people that you work hard to bring into the fold, to go through an application process, to get into a property, whatever it may be, 20 to 70% are going to leave before the 100-day anniversary. And the reason they're going to leave is because they don't feel that they matter. When we're in the sales process, when we're in marketing, it's like dating. Everything's great. Everybody's putting their best foot forward. Everybody's dressing up, gussied up, feeling good. You're pulling chairs out. You're opening doors. You're being kind of polite. And what happens is once we get into the relationship, we start to take it for granted. And we don't do all the special things we used to do. And our customers notice that, and they don't like it. And so what we want to do is create a system and a process for laying a foundation of remarkable experiences that we can continue to build on over time. Because while 20 to 70% will leave in the first 100 days, all the research shows if on day 101, your customer feels ecstatic about the relationship, they feel like you care about them, they feel like they matter, the typical customer will stay for 5 years. Okay, so we get all the longevity and the lifetime value of the relationship that we want if we just make those deposits into the karmic bank account in the first 3 months.
Hey, I know this is true, and here's why. Gino and I were being pitched yesterday. We were on a Zoom call, And the gentleman was very nice. You know, he was, I will make everything happen in the world, and promising sunshine and rainbows. The reason I know this is true is because as we were being pitched, in the back of my head, I was saying to myself, I wonder what it feels like to talk to this guy at day 15. And something in my gut told me, while I feel that he's courting me right now and would do anything, something in my gut tells me at day 15 that it changes. And so that was where, you know, in the back of my head, I was saying, my gut was saying, I don't think this feels the same now as it does in day 15. How do you bridge that gap?
Well, I think what's interesting, Jake, is trust your gut, right?
Yeah.
The reality is the reason your gut feels that way is because it's been proven time and time again, right?
A lot of letdowns in my
Your
life.
instinct, a lot of letdowns. Well, because you're human. And here's the thing, this shows up in every relationship that we have, right? It shows up in our personal relationships, in our business relationships. Humans, by our very nature, are designed for the chase, not for the catch. We get excited about new shiny things, right? Squirrel, what are we, you know, it's like, what are you throwing in front of me? And there are tons of books out there about sales and marketing and persuasion, and there are techniques which are designed to convince humans that we can be trusted, that we're valued, that we're being honest, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is most people don't carry that through the relationship. They use it to get their foot in the door, but then they don't use it to keep themselves in the door. That's why 20 to 70% leave.
So, two things. Number one, it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. That was really important that one of my sales mentors told me. You can say all blah, blah, blah. The guy on the Zoom call yesterday can make you feel good.
Zero trust.
Exactly. How does he make me feel? How does your customer journey experience, the texting, the emails, the video texts, the thank you cards, all that kind of stuff? How are you making them feel? It's really important. And I think the second thing that I like to say is Joey's got the framework. He's got I call it the 8 A's. It's from assess to advocate. And what you do in between of those, you need to read the book. We can't go in the podcast because we could be on here for 2 hours, but there's so many different techniques. You can customer journey your experience and throw in all different techniques. Can you just talk about a couple of different ways you can reach out to your prospects, your customers once they've become customers?
Yeah, absolutely, Gino. I think there's two pieces of this process, right? There's the phases of the customer journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 8 A's as that you referenced, that basically from the first time they hear about you at the assess phase, where they're trying to decide whether they even want to become a customer. In common parlance, we call this marketing and sales. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're checking out your materials. They're talking to people that have done business with you, that kind of thing. All the way to the last phase, phase 8, the advocate phase, where they're referring their friends and family and colleagues to come do business with you. They become your non-commissioned, biggest raving fan advocate salespeople who are out there getting the word. The problem most businesses have is they want to jump from that first phase to the last phase 5 minutes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I liken this stuff to dating. Imagine you go on a first date. You get seated at the table at the restaurant. Things are feeling good. The waiter comes over to take your order and drops the menus off, but it's like, oh, look at the menus and come back. And they leave. And while they're gone, the person you're on the date with says, so, when do I get to meet your parents? And you're like,
I thought you were going to say, when can we sleep together?
This is the first date. Different kind of date, Jake. Different kind of date, right? So they jump right to the end, right? They jump to, well, when are you going to be an advocate, saying the good word about me, sharing me with mom and dad, letting them know, who I am. And the moral of the story is most businesses are missing steps in that journey.
Mm-hmm.
The specific question, though, are what are the tools? I believe there are 6 tools you can use to communicate with your customers in the first 100 days and beyond. Those 6 tools are as follows. Number 1, in-person interactions. Number 2, email. Number 3, mail, physical mail, snail mail, old school, send it in the post, right? Number 4, phone. Number 5, video. And number 6, gifts and presents. Now, here's the interesting thing is I just went through that list. Those of you that are listening at home were like, oh, yeah, I use that tool. I really don't use that one at all. Oh, yeah, I use that one. Well, I don't really use that one as much as I could. Or I use that one with certain types of customers, but not other types. I believe that all 6 of those tools can be used with all of your customers across the first 100 days. And you want to have a mix of tools. And the reason you want to have a mix of tools is because your customers have different preferences. Let me give you an example. In my house, I'm happily married. I've been married 10 years this year. My wife loves to do everything via text or chat. She doesn't like talking on the phone. She doesn't even like talking on the phone to me, right? Whereas I like to do everything via phone or video. I want to see the person. I want to hear the person. I want to catch the tonality. Now, here's the thing. Neither of us is right or wrong. We're just different. But somebody who's trying to sell something to our household, depending on whether they're trying to sell through my wife or sell through me, better use different tools if they want to succeed. If they want to get me online and like, oh, just come to our website and we'll do a chat with you. I'm like, can I just talk to someone on the phone? Whereas with my wife, if they're like, we'd like to schedule a phone call, she's like, can you just text me what you want? Right? And so your customers are exactly the same way.
I love that because we've incorporated that in our business. We send out merchandise once a student signs up. We'll send out a whole Zoom video where we can onboard the student. We'll send out our handwritten thank you card. We will follow up with a Zoom call. So we've incorporated all that. And does it take work? It obviously does.
Yes.
But there's a framework to it. And now we have the time. And once you do it, Joey, guess what? It's done.
Exactly. Gino, you're so true. If we are willing to make the investment in the system. See, you mentioned earlier when you said, well, it's not what you say, it's how they feel. And for years, people have said, well, you can't really systematize or automate feelings or emotions. Like that's the special sauce. You have to add it in. You got to empower your people to do it. And I agree that you need to empower your people to do it. But it's also okay to have a system that says, hey, on day 10, we send a thank you note. And it becomes a checklist. You think nothing of having a system that says, hey, if somebody decides to do business with us, we send them a contract and an invoice. We feel no problem doing that. Why do we feel a problem saying, and this is the day that we write the thank you note? And this is the day that we call to check in and make sure that they received the item that they ordered from us and that they actually took it out of the box and they used it, right? It's not enough. Most businesses think it's enough just to deliver the product or deliver the service. Here it is. We're good to go. And I know a lot of the folks who are listening, you think about this in a real estate context, right? Well, I signed the lease and they moved in. How many times have you moved into a place and in the first week realized, hey, this doesn't work the way I thought it was going to work, or this light bulb is out, or hey, this door is loose, or this handle, lots of times we can't truly understand what we're dealing with a product or a service until we actually get in and experience it. And if you don't go back and check in with them, a significant percentage of your customers will never say a word. They will never tell you that the flusher on the toilet, you have to jiggle it to get the water
And
to
that's
stop.
money going in the dirt. If
Oh my
water's
God,
leaking,
water is leaking, not to mention it's annoying the tenant, but they're
all
not going to
bad.
say anything to
No
you
good.
until it comes time to renew the lease. And then they're going to say, no, I'm moving out. And you're like, why are you moving out? Oh, well, I just found something. They're not going to tell you that it was the toilet. And then guess what? The next tenant comes in, has the exact same problem. And you may be 5 or 6 tenants through before one of them finally says, hey, by the way, this toilet isn't working properly. And then obviously your maintenance team and you're like, oh, geez, great. We'll get in and fix that right away. We're happy to do it. You have to initiate the conversation, and you have to do it in a way that creates the trust and rapport that your customers or your tenants feel comfortable saying, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's the problem. Can you help me?
I
Extreme
love that.
ownership, Gino. They're taking
Yes.
extreme ownership. You know
I
the
love
other
that.
thing about this too is that Gino's talking about like once you set it up, it's done. Guess what? You can also make improvements
You
to
can
it because
pivot
it's done, and then it's
constantly.
fun. Like we just added these cool Jake and Gino sunglasses to the mix, and then it becomes like a morale, culture building, fun thing because the foundation is there. It's done.
Yes.
So let's throw some fun stuff in. Easy. Right?
100%, Jake. Then you're polishing edges, right? Here's the thing. So many entrepreneurs, so many business owners, and I say this respectfully because I am an entrepreneur, we want to get to the fun stuff. We don't want the systems and the foundation and the operate. We want to get to the glitz, the glamour, the sparkly. And usually we hire people on our team to do the other stuff because we like to spend all of our time in the, hey, what's shiny over there? But to your point, Jake, if you lay the foundation now, if you build out the journey and you know what the steps are going to be, and you execute on that consistently, you deliver a consistent experience again and again, that alone will make you stand out. Then you get to pepper on the special stuff on top of it. Oh my gosh, that's when your business goes really wild.
So, Joey, before we get to questions from our team, one thing I'd like to say, or really ask you, is we love Chick-fil-A for their customer service and then customer journey, customer experience. Can you give the listeners a frame of reference of a company you've worked with and just why they have superior customer service?
Well, I will tell you, I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A as well. And here's the thing, if we may, I'll answer your question, but
Sure.
what do we love about Chick-fil-A? They're friendly. Right?
Mhm.
Right out of the blocks, they're friendly. Half the time you're taking your order while you're in line. They come out. They've got a
Yep.
person standing there to take your order. They've decided to make the investment to have an in-person interaction instead of having you talking over a robotic machine to somebody in a call center on the other side of the world who's trying to understand that you said, nuggets with, Polynesian sauce instead of hot mustard sauce. And there's all kinds of breakdown. Whereas now they're having the interaction. Everything is friendly. Everything is a smile. They have some of the greatest longevity of employees in the industry, in the fast food industry. People go back again and again. And I don't know about you, there are very few food restaurants that you roll up on and almost always see a line.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, can I give an example real quick?
But you
I'm
wait,
sorry,
yeah,
but yesterday, literally yesterday, we only had 6 people in the office yesterday. We're keeping it small. We had some things we had to get done, right? I go to Chick-fil-A literally yesterday. This is no bullshit, to buy lunch for the office. They have a long winding road, that pulls into it because it's one of the newer ones. I pull in, literally it's backed up to the road to get in.
Right.
And this is 2 lines to go. They have 2 lanes to get through. So I weave past this truck in front of me because there's a little opening in the one next to me. I shit you not. I'm in and out of there in 10 minutes because they have a freaking team of people with iPads next to the lines taking orders down. Okay. My receipt, for the folks on YouTube was probably like 1.5 feet. It was big because we had a lot of stuff on there. I ordered milkshakes for some of the folks. Less than 10 minutes. By the time I get to the window, I literally open up the back of the Range Rover with a button. The door comes open and they loaded all the food into the back. If I was at McDonald's, and this is what I said to everyone on the team, they would have had me pull over. Sir, please go to a spot and pull over and we'll be with you in like 45 minutes.
Right.
The back of the Range opens up. They load the food in with the milkshakes. They're so damn happy to serve. I'm literally saying to them, thank you so much. I love you guys for the way you're handling this right now. It was just such a pleasant experience through all this crap that we're dealing with. And I went back and I raved about the experience to everyone in the office. And this was yesterday.
I love it. And Jake, let me take that and expand on that. Some of the people listening might be saying, yeah, but I don't have a fast food restaurant like that. I don't
this is
get
what
it.
you want to be. It doesn't
Right?
matter. That's
I
the
don't know.
point.
I get it. And I understand where you're coming from, but I
Yeah.
want to connect the dots maybe for the listeners. The reason Jake really loved that, 2 things that he pointed out. Number 1, they made the line experience, the waiting and experience into an experience. There are parts of your business that have to happen that aren't fun, that take time. There's a reason why when people go to Disneyland or Disney World, they don't mind waiting in line for 2 hours for a ride. Why? Because the ride starts the second you get in line. You're weaving through and you're seeing characters and you're seeing dioramas and setups and sound and music, and there's things happening. Plus, they're sending you back and forth and up and down. So you feel like you're having an adventure instead of what happens in the line at the airport at security, where it's back and forth like cattle heading to the slaughter, right? So make the waiting portion experience. The second thing he pointed out, which every business, regardless of your industry, can do, the people you said seemed excited to be serving you.
Oh
They
my
were
God.
happy.
Yeah.
And you got caught up in that emotion too. Then you were excited to be being served. And
I wanted to get behind the line. I wanted to throw some fries down, baby.
Exactly. So here's the thing. It's part of the reason why I love what I get to do for a living, right? By focusing on customer experience, your life gets better. Now, I know that sounds corny, and I know that sounds like a big, internet marketing promise, but the reality is when we are serving people and we're having fun serving people, they will enjoy it, and they'll start serving us and having fun when they interact with us, and suddenly all boats are rising together.
I want to say it one more time. We got milkshakes, and they didn't make me get out the side of the line.
Yeah.
And I saw, and Mikey T got the big one. So it wasn't like the six. I got Mikey T the big cookies and cream, and they got that thing out the door without having me pull over. I was in
I want to
awe.
work at your office next week, Jake. I'm going to come down and work there.
I'm like, dude, I missed all that. What are you're killing me over here.
Moving and shaking, baby.
Wow. So Joey, first question from Mikey T, actually. So Mikey T, big
he's
shout
a
out.
double winner today.
Yeah, woohoo. There you go.
And this is a great question. I love this. He says, our investing arm of our business, we don't always have a product, an offering for investors. So how do we continue to keep the prospective investors engaged without overwhelming them with communication?
Yeah, so here's the thing. The key word in that sentence is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
How do we stop from overwhelming them with communication? When you're getting communication that you don't want or doesn't seem personalized or doesn't seem relevant, that's when it becomes overwhelming.
Yes.
I guarantee that everybody listening has somebody in their life that whenever they call you or leave a message or wherever you see an email from them, you read it immediately. You listen immediately because you know that every time they reach out, there's value. Okay? I imagine you also have people in your life that when you see the 7th email from them in 24 hours, you think to yourself, enough. Enough is enough. I don't even care if what you're telling me is worth $1 million. I don't want to hear it because I am overwhelmed. The secret here is to figure out what type of person you are in terms of your communication and make sure that your communications have value and meaning and relevance and personalization. Let me repeat that. Value and meaning and relevance and personalization, and figure out your customer, or in this case, your investor, what level of communication do they want? So for example, in many of the investments I'm involved in that are kind of long-term retirement-esque involvements, I want to talk about those investments once a year. And the reason I want to talk about them once a year is not because other things don't happen during the year that could be relevant and important, but I want to condition my brain to thinking this is the long term. I don't want to look at the portfolio performance every week, because if I'm in this for the long haul and I'm conditioning myself that what matters every week, then I'm looking to sell or exit or jump into new things on a weekly basis. By the way, my gut instinct is with a lot of your investors, you want them for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to balance what do they need to know versus I don't want to overwhelm you and be talking to you all the time. Otherwise, you think that this is something that has to be managed all the time, right?
Yep.
So pace and pay attention. There's 2 things we can do. Number 1, we can ask them what way they like to be communicated and what level of frequency. And number 2, we can check their behaviors. So what'll sometimes happen is you'll say, oh, how often do you like to be communicated with? And we say, once a year is fine. Just give me an update. And then about every 6 to 8 weeks, they're sending you an email that's like, hey, just checking in. How are things going? And you're like, I know you said once a year, but actually I should have you on an every 6 weeks cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have, as we talked about earlier, when you have the systems in place in your business, you can tag these people and communicate with them accordingly. The big problem most businesses have when they have, when they don't have a product, let's say they have a bunch of investors, is that they treat them all the same. Stop treating everybody the same. Every human is different. There are some similarities, but the more you can make the communication customized to them, the more successful you'll be.
And this is great. Piggybacking off what you said, he actually had a thought about it. I just thought of having office hours for our prospective investors where I'm just on Zoom and investors can join and ask me questions whenever they want. That goes to Joey. Maybe some people don't like Zoom, the video. So you can ask them and say, if you want to jump on, I'm going to be on Mondays at 12 p.m. Ask me anything. And that's a value add. If you want to be on, be on. If you can't, I'll record it for you and I can send it out. So that's a great way of thinking outside the box. I love that.
Absolutely.
Next one, Shannon. Big shout out to Shannon.
Woohoo!
How would you respond to residents asking for a decrease or a concession in rent due to amenities being closed and for non-emergency work orders not being completed during the outbreak right now?
Yeah. So for context for folks listening who may be listening at a later date, we're recording this in early April, and we are kind of in the early stages of the COVID-19 outbreak. The advice I'm about to give, forgive the disclaimer, but is based on what we know today and where the world is today. This stuff is evolving literally on an hourly basis. So I just want to give a little context. Here's the crazy thing. Some of your listeners aren't going to like the answer that I give here. If you're in this for the long game, if you're in this for the long haul, act like it. We are at a time that is unprecedented in human history. For the first time in human history, something is affecting every person on the planet, regardless of age, gender, nationality, culture, creed, race, where they live, geography. Every single human being is dealing with COVID-19 at the exact same time. Now, to be candid, in varying degrees, right? Some places are hit harder than others, but it's all we're hearing about in the news. It's all we're seeing on social media. All of your tenants are waist deep in this. We're also within the last 2 weeks here in the United States, we've seen 10 million people file for unemployment. 10 million. Let me put that in context. In the history of unemployment record keeping, the highest weekly number we ever had was 600,000. Last week was 3 million. This week was 6 million. I personally believe next week will be 6 million or more. Okay. So the moral of the story is you are going to be fielding more of these questions. So here's what I would do. Figure out ways to work with your tenants. If part of, now this is where it gets tricky, because lots of times when you decide what the rent's going to be, you don't tell them, well, here's how much you're paying for the room that you're sleeping in the house you're living in, and here's how much you're paying for the pool, and here's how much you're paying for the gym. No, we bundle it all together. Here's the fee of being in our facility and having access. Well, if they don't have access to other amenities, it would only be appropriate to reduce the rent by a certain amount, right? Now, this is where it gets tricky, because we say, oh, well, if we're reducing the rent, then how are we going to bring it back up later? And now they know what the pool is, and they might turn around and say, well, since I never use the pool, I want to just keep my rent lower going forward. Folks, we've literally got to take this month by month. We've got to navigate it to the best of our ability. And I think if you just go to them honestly and you say, look, here's the deal. We understand these are difficult times. They're difficult times for you. They're difficult times for us. What can we do to work together to keep our property enjoyable, to keep all the amenities that we have? Yes, we know some of them you can't be using, but frankly, some of them you're using more. We're not charging you more for the fact that you're taking more showers and flushing the toilets more that you're here all day, are we? No. So work with us. What can we do? What's your situation? You know, you may have tenants that say, hey, I'm working remote now and my job is secure and I'm okay. It's like, great. If you can keep paying rent, that'd be amazing. You may have tenants that say, hey, I lost my job. I don't know what I can do. All right, what can we do to work with you to help you navigate this? So I would say it needs to be a case-by-case basis, unless you feel like you can do the math as a property and say, we're going to lead the charge. Here's what I mean by that. The businesses that are acting first to be gracious are the ones that customers will remember. For example, I fly a lot. Gino and Jake and I were talking about this before we started recording. I'm a speaker. I spend about 3.5 weeks out of every month on the road. For context, in 2019, I flew 160,000 miles on Delta. Okay. I am on airplanes all the time, and I am a huge Delta fan. It is my personal belief, and I think the facts show this, that Delta was the first one out of the gates to set, when all this started to hit, say, hey, by the way, if you have a ticket on our plane, on a future flight, you can cancel that ticket, you can move that ticket, you can switch it to a credit with no penalties, no fees, none of the usual, oh, if you want to move it or you want to change it, you have to pay these fees. No. Here's the deal. And if you decide you just don't even want to go there or you can't go there, no problem. We will automatically make that a credit that is good for 1 year from the date of your flight. And they came out really quick and they said that. And as somebody who had a half dozen flights already booked with them, I was like, this is amazing. I call in, I put all of my stuff shifting, and I've got a huge credit now with Delta. Here's the reality, though. Delta got to keep the cash. Because they were generous, I didn't ask for a refund, because I know I'll fly them again. I want to fly them again. The same holds true for your tenants. If you are generous, They will remember that. And they will remember your generosity if you go first instead of waiting for them to come to you with their problem.
Being proactive, like Chick-fil-A.
Yes,
100%.
100%. Get out in the line. You know there's a line. You know they're dealing with things. You know they're not happy to be waiting. Send people out into the line. Not literally, right? Figuratively. Get in contact with your tenants. Have conversations with them. Check in on how they're doing.
I love that. This one is from Jen. Big shout out, Jen. What are your best tips for delivering bad or unpopular news to customers and keeping them loyal customers? You sort of answered it in this previous one, but really, let's dive into this one.
Yeah. So I like to approach this in a 3-step process. Anytime you've got to deliver bad news or difficult news, number one, lead with empathy. Acknowledge the reality of the situation. Empathize with the fact that they're struggling too. We are in unprecedented times. I'm not kidding you. Anybody who's listening who disagrees with me, send me a message, let me know. I cannot think of another time in human history where every human was dealing with the same problem at the same time. I've had a couple people come back and say, well, Joey, the 1918 pandemic of influenza, that was the last time we were like this. No, it's not, because that swept across the globe over the course of several years. This hit the entire planet in several months. This is unprecedented. There was no time to build up and think about it before it hit the average person, right? It was in your backyard before you knew it. Number one, we lead with empathy. We acknowledge the situation that we're dealing with today. Number two, let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay? Explain it. Years ago, another airline example, if I may, it used to be when you flew on the airline, if there was a delay, they'd come on and they'd say, hey, guess what? Sorry, we've got a delay. We're going to be leaving 30 minutes later than planned. And that was all you got. If any of you have flown in the last few years, now you get a message like this. Ladies and gentlemen, we just got a message from the captain that there is an indicator light on that shows that the landing gear may have an issue. Now, as you might imagine, we think it's important to be able to land you as much as we think it's important to get you up in the air. It's going to take us about 30 minutes to have the mechanics come, check and see if that's just a faulty light or if there's actually an issue. We will be back to you in 25 minutes with an update as to where we stand. We want to keep you safe. Hang in there. We'll be back to you soon. They explain what's going on. And the reason they do that is the research showed that they have less irate customers when they do that. It also showed, ironically enough, they serve less drinks on the plane on the next flight because people are calmer. They're relaxed. They're not freaking out about what's happening. So I think there's an opportunity to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it from a place of empathy. Third part of the process, talk about what they can do. Okay? If you have any questions about this, here's my personal phone number to give me a call. If you have concerns about this, send me an email at this address. Remind them that there's an avenue to go deeper, because sometimes we think we've been very clear in our communications when we haven't. Sometimes we think we've anticipated all the additional concerns or queries or questions that somebody might have when we haven't. We need to remind them that the door is open for them to come back with feedback and questions.
Love that. Big shout out to Chelsea. Next question. Do you have any advice or ideas on how to communicate during the first 100 days in a personalized and positive way using remote technologies?
Oh, I love this one, right? So it's easy to communicate in a personal way when you can knock on the door and talk to the person, right? I love video. And I love video for two reasons. Number one, you can see the other person. Throughout human history, we have assessed whether somebody is friend or foe based on what we see, okay? We've been able to assess their intentionality and what they're trying to accomplish based on how they hold their body and body language. Additionally, when we can hear what someone is saying, the ability to understand completely what their intention, what their tone, what they're really trying to get across increases dramatically than when we just read it. How many times have you been in a situation where you've gotten a text message and you read it, and thanks to your beautiful monkey mind, you made it a negative text message? When it wasn't really a negative text message, it was just a comment, but you read between the lines, as they say. Or you got an email and you're like, gosh, I can't believe they said that. You call them up to ask them about it, and you realize you misinterpreted the tone, right? I love the idea of using video. So how do we use this in terms of remote technologies when we're being encouraged to, physically distance from our customers? Send them a text message with a video. Offer to
I
do a
love that.
FaceTime call or a Zoom call. What I love about the sending the text message with a video is there's not a requirement that they reply, and it's what they call asynchronous communication, in the sense that the customer can watch that video whenever they want. If you try to set up a Zoom call, they've got to adjust their schedule and their day. They've got to make sure they've taken a shower, put on clothes, have the camera set up so there isn't some weird happening in the background. They worry about all these things. Whereas if you just shoot the video and send them, they can watch that anywhere in their house, anytime, day or night. And what the research shows is they'll watch it more than once. So don't
Mm.
miss the opportunity to seed your video messages with positive affirmations of the relationship, because when they watch it again, they'll hear it again. That's
I,
why I want us to start out with the empathy,
mhm.
then move to the what we're doing, then explain kind of what they can do to be engaged or involved as well.
And I love that. Just a thought for property managers out there, maybe on day 5, after you've delivered a personalized thank you card because you know where they live, you drop it off. Day 7 or day 10, you hit them with the video text from the office. Hey, Joey, I hope you're enjoying, living in the apartment. Please let me know if something goes wrong. If you got a leaky toilet or we're here. We don't know. We want that, and that video text is there and it's a positive message. So this is something that I think everyone should build into the customer journey. So I love that tip. Thank you.
Gino, I love it. To build on that briefly, if I may,
Sure.
my wife was one of the co-founders and ran one of the first co-working spaces, actually the first co-working space in the United States and the longest co-working space in the world. This was 20 years ago when you had to explain what co-working was. The office was located here and all the tenants were out here. And it was about a 30-foot walk between where the tenants were and where the office was. We always used to joke that those were the longest 30 feet in the world. That people wouldn't walk the 30 feet to say, hey, the copier isn't working, or hey, we're out of toilet paper in the bathroom, or hey, I noticed there's some food that's smelling in the kitchen, whatever it may be. Your tenants are the same way. Even though you have an office on site, a significant percentage of your tenants will never come into that office after they sign the lease. They
Especially
will never come
nowadays.
again, right? Especially nowadays, right? So you need to remind them that you're there because they're not physically seeing you. So what can you do to remind them? Oh, you can do a door tag. You can slide something under their door. You can send them a text message. You can send them an email. Do things that remind them and address the elephant in the room. Say to them, hey, I know that we have an office down on the first floor that you haven't seen since you signed up and you became a tenant 3 years ago. But please know, we know exactly where your apartment is. And we are ready to come there at a moment's notice if you have any issues. By any issues, I mean a light bulb that's not working. I mean a handle on the kitchen cabinet that isn't the way you want it. I mean the fact that you've got to jiggle the toilet handle, whatever it may be. Actually cite a couple of examples of the little things. And I would encourage you to make them little things, because lots of times people, when something's wrong, they'll say, well, I didn't think it rose to the level of bothering you. But they let it bother them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you lower the bar on the threshold of what is acceptable to reach out to you about, they'll reach out to you about the little things. Then when you deliver on the little things, you've made deposits in the karmic bank account. So when there's a big thing, they know you're going to take care of it because they've watched you take care of the little things.
I love that. One more question before we go to short answers. I could keep asking questions, Jake. This is a wealth of knowledge. This is from Jen again. Another great question. Any creative ideas for us to go above and beyond for our residents, our students, and or our investors right now?
Yeah, this is a crazy time, as I've said multiple times in our conversation. The best thing you can do right now is acknowledge the reality of the situation. And I know we've got listeners all over the country, all over the world. The situation in your local community may be different. And you may have investors that are living in communities that are experiencing COVID-19 in a very different way than what the tenants are. And they don't have context for that. I mean, to be frank, we were talking before we started recording. I live in Colorado, and we're talking about the difference between the COVID-19 experience in Colorado and the COVID-19 experience in Florida. I only know what the experience you're having there, Gino, is because you're sharing with me. You only know about the experience in Colorado because I'm sharing with you. So what we need to do right now is acknowledge that the experience levels may be different, but everybody's having a significant experience. So the first thing we want to do is check in to make sure that we're not projecting our experience onto the people we're communicating with. It may not be the same experience. Number two, being in contact is really valuable right now. The longer we are in shelter in place type scenarios, the longer we feel like, I've heard people refer to it as, how long have you been in lockdown, right? We're putting all of these words and these images on top of what the situation is. And it's true. It's a limiting experience. And I would posit it's more limiting here than anywhere else on the planet. Why? Because what do we think of
Skynet's coming next.
Well, what do we think of America as? The land of the free, the home of the brave. The problem is we are being called to focus on the second part of that phrase, the home of the brave, and to, for a while, put in check the land of the free. Okay? But that's a big change in our very ethos as Americans, as a culture, as a society. So we can be in communication with them. We can be in regular communication with them. We can empathize. I think there are some interesting ways we could go to the next level. For example, one of the thoughts I was getting excited for our conversation because I always like talking to you guys. One of the things I got thinking about is we've all seen the memes and the difficulties about people getting toilet paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most properties that I know have a huge stockpile of toilet paper for their common area bathrooms. You could deliver a single roll of toilet paper to every one of your tenants, probably only cut your stockpile by a third, and they would remember that.
They'd laugh.
They'd
So,
laugh. They'd smile. They'd say, oh my gosh, they get it. They're with me. And then it becomes your job to go out and get your stock. But guess what? You were getting your stock not from the local grocery store. You were getting your stock brought in by bigger suppliers and vendors who probably haven't experienced the same rush that the grocery stores have. So you can help your tenants out with something little that'll make them laugh, it'll make them smile. And you could even include a note. Hey, and by the way, if things get a little crazy because there's more of you at home, remember, we're here to help with toilet clogs and leaks.
We're here to wipe your ass.
Right? You can be playful with it, right? People
So-
are looking for a reason to laugh right now.
This is so funny because one of my short answer questions that I had for you is going to be, what would be the best Corona gift right now? In the back of my mind, I was thinking toilet paper, and we actually have round company stickers that are about the size of a quarter. And I was thinking about putting the sticker on the piece where the flap actually comes up a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
And I was going to see what your thoughts were on this. And I was trying to.
I think it's great. Be playful, right? Have fun with it. Acknowledge the insanity of the world we're living in right now. And again, it comes back to, as I mentioned, I think all communication should always have this component, but this component is more important during COVID-19 than at any other time it's ever been, which is empathy.
Here's the funny thing that Joey brought up. Chadwell and HD Supply, and for the folks that are obviously in the apartment game, those are our suppliers. They have plenty of toilet paper right now.
Yeah.
So you can get it like next day, slap your logo on there. My question is, Joey, what do you think though? Because I think what would really hit home with this is if the note is funny and if it had like the company branding on it. Where do you think? Because I'm all for this. It's just how do you really make that note impactful? Any further thoughts on that?
Yeah. So here's the thing I want to caution our listeners to doing. Yes, everybody wants to laugh right now, but there's a varying degree as to what people think is funny and how much they want to laugh, right? Now, if you're one of my tenants, Jake, and I know you, I know I can probably push to a level 12 on funny on a scale of 1 to 10. But you have tenants that right now have lost their jobs. You have tenants right now that know someone who is in the hospital with COVID-19. And depending on where you're based, there is a high likelihood that you have tenants right now that know someone who has died from COVID-19. Okay? So we want to be careful with how far we go in the humor. So what I would say is put a little bit out there, just a little touch, and see.
Be more supportive, though.
Come from a place of empathy and support first, then lay on the humor. And if there's if you know the tenant, right? Because let's be candid, some of the folks You know the tenants that are in your property, and there's other tenants that you don't know as well. And that's okay. Some of your customers you're going to know better than others. If you know them well and you think they'll laugh and you think you can have some fun and push a little bit, go ahead and do that. But we want to watch out for the tone deaf responses right now that aren't acknowledging the reality we're living in.
So, Jake, I said that was my last question, but I need to ask this question because I think it's really important. What do you focus on when starting a business first, the product or the customer journey? I think it's really important because most people don't even think about a customer experience. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that everything should be looked through via the lens of the customer at
Mm-hmm.
all times. When you're starting your business, when you're running your business, when you're winding your business down. Can we briefly address that? There may be some folks listening that have had to lay people off. There may be some folks listening who, if this continues too much longer, are going to be in a situation where they're having to exit parts of their business. How you offboard people is as important as how you onboard them. They will remember that. So yes, there's a lot of stress. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think the customer lens should always be there. So my theory is the second you have an idea for a product, I have no problem of you having an idea for a product. That's great. And a lot of entrepreneurs, the first genesis is we could create this. After you've spent a day getting excited about that, spend the next day thinking about how would the customer use it? Do they really want it?
Mm-hmm.
What would they think is important? I know what I think is important. What would they think is important? And be willing to put as much time seeing it from the customer's eyes as you are from your eyes. Even if we can just get to 50-50, you'll be crushing it in whatever industry you're in, right? Because most industries overskew about 90-10. They spend about 90% of the time thinking about themselves and their vision of the product or the service, and about 10% thinking about the customer.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get you closer to 50-50, you're crushing it. You're doing incredibly well in whatever industry you're playing.
All right, gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor. Gino and I are super excited to tell you about the audiobook version of The Honeybee, which was recently released.
The Honeybee tells the story of Noah, a disappointed, disaffected salesman who feels like his life is going nowhere until the day he has a chance encounter with a man named Tom Barnum, the beekeeper. In his charming, down-home way, Tom, the bee man, teaches Noah and his wife Emma how to grow their personal wealth using the lessons he learned from his beekeeping passion.
In the audio version, Gino and I sat down for an exclusive interview after each chapter where we elaborate on the stings we felt throughout the business, the importance of scaling up, and how we've been able to create multiple streams of revenue.
For more information and to get your copy of the audiobook, visit jakeandgino.com/honeybee.
All right, what about a tip, your best tip for creating an advocate?
I think the best tip for creating an advocate is to do something completely unexpected that creates a moment of surprise and delight for them, to go the extra mile.
Toilet paper.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we were just talking about delivering the toilet paper, I'd be willing to bet that if you delivered a roll of toilet paper to every one of your tenants, they would comment about that on social media. They would tell their friends, you will not believe it. My apartment manager left me a handwritten note and a roll of toilet paper outside the front door today.
The copy needs to be tight
Right?
on this script,
Right?
you know?
Exactly. I mean, they will be totally surprised and they will share that. Here's the thing. Often, when it comes to advocates, we often make two mistakes. We ask too early, or we don't ask at all. And depending on your business and depending on your personality, you probably fall into one of those two categories. Either you're like, hey, what can we do to get some more people in here? Who do you know that might also like to rent a place? Or somebody's been a tenant for years and we never ask them, hey, who else do you know that might be moving? This is actually an interesting time. I don't think you should be asking for referrals just yet. Okay, we are in the early days of COVID-19, okay, when we're recording this. I think right now you should be laying the foundation for serving folks so well that when things start to get back to normal, when people who are currently living somewhere else need to find a new place to live, okay, that they're hearing from their friends, oh my gosh, you will not believe how these folks took care of me during the crisis. You will not believe how great they were about rent, how great they were about toilet paper deliveries, how great they were about, creating an amenity schedule where we could use certain amenities at times because they were building the cleaning in or doing more of the cleaning, whatever it may be. Your customers and your employees will remember how you treat them during COVID-19 long after COVID-19 is over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love that.
This is the time to make the investment.
So Jake, real quick, and everyone out there, Joey gave us an amazing example of how to create an advocate when we were working with him through our customer experience. We created the Closers Club. So when a student closes a deal, they get a great swag box. They're announced on the private Facebook group. They're championed, and they come on the Movers and Shakers podcast. So to create that experience, we never would have had that idea if we weren't working with Joey. And I'm like, what an awesome way. We're getting publicity, but the student is also getting put on a pedestal and getting something in the mail. So there's the continuation. And this may be 12 months out or 18 months after we've started our experience. And like Joey said, don't rush it. And then from there, you can say to the student, hey, do you have anybody, who you think that would love to mirror your results? And there, you're not even asking at that point because the student loves you. He's gotten your swag box, he's gotten all that stuff, and he's gotten the notoriety, and he's on our other podcast. So, I mean, so many amazing different ways in thinking outside the box when you do work with Joey. So
I appreciate that, Gino. Yeah, folks, you're only limited by your own creativity on this stuff. All right. And we've got a lot of people there is no one listening who doesn't have huge amounts of creativity. Now, you may not think that you do, but they may just be showing up in different areas, right? They may show up when you're in your garage working on the weekends, right? It may show up in how you prepare meals for your family. Creativity has a lot of different faces. And what I'd love to do, and why it was so much fun working with you two, is you just got to tap into the energy and the creativity of the person you're dealing with. For you guys, hey, come on the podcast. This will be great. We'll promote you. That totally fits with your energy and your brand. There are other companies that doesn't fit with their energy and brand. That doesn't say that they're bad, it just says they're different. Do the thing that's in alignment with how you see the world and kind of your spirit and your ethic, and you will attract those type of people to your business.
love that.
What about a tool for systematizing your customer experience?
Well, I would say the first thing to do is have you written down what your customer journey is? Like let's go to basics here, right? A lot of businesses, their customer journey and their customer experience is haphazard. They don't record it. So I would say the first tool would be to map out what the ideal customer journey is, and then to place every one of your customers on that map. The next tool I would adopt is some type of a record-keeping system, whether that's a CRM or a spreadsheet or even a notebook.
You have one that you like more than others, or?
I don't actually, Jake. And the reason I don't is because depending on how you run your business, I've had scenarios where people in the same industry, it makes sense for them to be using different CRM tools because of the other structures and systems in their business. My favorite tool, though, my favorite CRM of all time is the one you're going to use. Spend the money on the one you're going to use, right? Because here's the thing. Most people are like, oh, well, I got to go buy HubSpot, or I got to go buy Marketo, or I got to buy one of these big, Salesforce or whatever it may be. And those are all great. But by the way, if you're buying into any of those programs, you better have a member of staff who is dedicated to the technology implementation to be able to take full advantage of that, right? Whereas my theory is, use the thing that you're going to use. If you're just getting started on this, 3x5 index cards is fine. Like literally, it's okay to go old school with paper. I'd like you to go to technology if you need to, but it's okay. Yeah, exactly. My kind of guy. I like it, right? Use the thing that you're going to use, because
Joey would get crucified in one of our meetings,
right? That'll build up the muscle that allows you to then say, all right, now we're going to transition to more bells and whistles.
It's not me either. It's our team. They go nuts with the paper stuff. I go a little heavier than you guys, but
Yeah. No, it's good. Well, I will tell you, the good news about these is this is today. At the end of the day, these get recycled. They don't last more than a day. So they are literally just the things for quick conversations like this. We move through them quickly.
Any book recos that, anything you've read recently?
Man, so many great books. this is going to be a little bit of a change in pace. I think everybody listening should be reading some fiction right now. Okay. You're all great business owners and entrepreneurs. And, you know, all you have to do is look at the newest business books that everybody's talking about. And there's a bunch. One that I just got, literally, I was looking because to see it just came in the mail. My buddy Shep Hyken, who's a great customer experience and customer service expert, just reissued a new, updated version of his book, The Cult of the Customer, which is great. It's got new stories, new take. If you haven't read it before, you can come back and read it again. Really fun there. So there's a business recommendation. But I really think folks should be reading fiction right now, and there's a reason for that. You're under more stress than you think you are.
Why?
Let's
Because
just
it's
get
been
real.
14-hour days for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you're under more stress for a lot of reasons. You're under more stress because for the first time, maybe you're not feeling as invincible as you were, whether that is for your business or your health. For the first time, you're thinking a lot more closely about the people in your life who are over 60, who are highly susceptible to a critical result from this instance. We are living in a time where there is more uncertainty than ever before. I mean, before, every business owner, you have uncertainty. Is there going to be a leak? Is there going to be, are we going to be able to fill that, that apartment? You've always had uncertainty in your business, but now we have an uncertainty around where is our country going? Are we, most economists will tell you that we're already in the recession. Now the big question is, are we actually in a depression, and how long is that going to last? And for a lot of people listening, this is the first time you've gone through that. Okay, even if you went through 2008, 2009, right? Depending on where you were in your business life cycle and your growth, you're at a different place. In 2008, 2009, I was living in Washington, D.C. I had a lot of government contracts that I was working on. Guess who didn't experience a recession in 2008 and 2009? The federal government. So my business actually grew during that time, when a lot of folks I know, their businesses went down during that time. So we're kind of in this uncertain place. It's why I like the idea of reading fiction, because it gets your mind off the world we're living in and takes you to a different world. I'll make a recommendation. Amazon came out with a series not too long ago of short stories called Forward. Okay, they're kind of science fiction-esque. They went to 6 great writers and they said, we'd like you to write a short story about technology and the future, and pick a technology. So there's one that's written about quantum computing. There's one that's written about environmental safety. There's one that's written about cloning. There's different topics. And what it will do is it will get your mind thinking about things that aren't happening right now. And that's really useful for you. So I know it's a different response than you might have been expecting when you asked for that, but go read some fiction. My normal rule for myself is 1 for 1. 1 nonfiction book, 1 fiction book. Since this crisis started, I've gone to 3 for 1. 3 fiction, 1 nonfiction, because we got to give ourselves a little bit of a break.
So, I wasn't expecting anything, Joey. I'm just waiting for it. And so, you know what? We're gonna switch it up today, and we're gonna keep this going. And since we're not talking about, we're gonna extract ourselves from the shit that we're in right now. We're gonna go Netflix and chill. So I'm gonna give one, Lock and Key. It's kind of like a modern day Goonies.
Oh, nice.
Binged it. It was cool.
I just saw that, and I was wondering how that was going to be. I just saw an ad
Check
for
it out.
It's in. Nice. All right.
Any Netflix recommendation then for the
nice. Well, since you said Lock and Key, here's one from Amazon, Tales from the Loop. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm very familiar with the artist. I've been supporting this artist since they launched on Kickstarter. It's kind of a science fiction one. That's really fun. If we want to go crazy, and this is not one for the kids, let me repeat. This is only for grown-ups. It is intense. It is violent. It is crazy. It's called Ozark.
Everybody's saying this. Right? I haven't seen it. Have you seen this yet?
I haven't seen it.
So here's the premise behind Ozark. So I'm not giving anything away. It's the story of a guy who launders money for a cartel who lives in the United States. So he's laundering money here in the United States for a cartel. Folks, it's crazy, but as somebody who used to be a criminal defense lawyer, I find it really interesting, just full disclosure. However, again, not for the kids. Lots of skin, lots of death and gore, it's very intense. So I don't know it's the best recommendation right now. I think something a little more lighthearted. I will say for Netflix, go watch some comedy. Go watch some comedy on Netflix, whether that's, Chappelle or old stuff that they have on there, or, there's tons of comedy specials. Something that all the doctors will agree on. All the doctors will agree, because this is proven repeatedly, that laughing boosts your immune system. So if you're worried about COVID-19 and coronavirus and, oh, am I going to catch things or how's this going to be? Two things you can do: reduce the amount of stress in your life, increase the amount of laughter in your life.
Love that. So I'd love to see Joey Coleman's customer journey of a money launderer. That would be an interesting customer journey, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Pretty fun.
Hey, we got to give one for the kids here too, because I just we did Onward.
Oh,
the new
fantastic
Disney
movie.
one. So
Fantastic
I know
movie.
that's probably
So good.
G-Dad. Is that spinning in the house yet? It has to be, right?
It's not. We're watching the show Chuck from NBC
Wow.
from like 10 years ago, and
G-Dad's going frugal on the
through
kids.
all
No
5
Onward, huh?
seasons, dude.
Wow.
And I have to watch something that I enjoy, because I sit there with them, and it's just it can't be like, we have to all enjoy it. So
hey, the new Mary Poppins movie. You've got kids. The new Mary Poppins movie that led to a whole conversation with our kids, because one of the stars of the new Mary Poppins movie is Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's most famous for the musical Hamilton. So that my boys watched that, and my son said to me, "Daddy, has he ever done anything other than Mary Poppins?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, actually, he did this other thing called Hamilton." And my boys are 6 and 4, so they're a little young necessarily to introduce them to the world of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, but I did it anyway, and my wife is kind as usual to put up with my crazy hijinks. So yeah, there's lots of good stuffs out there, and I love that you asked that, Jake, because you should be watching more movies right now. Okay, this isn't business as usual. So many people I know are starting to reach this reality break point if they've been home for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maybe even more, and they're trying to be as productive as they were when they used to go to the office. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some permission to realize that the low-level stress and or high-level stress that is subconsciously on your body right now is insane. It's okay in the middle of the day to go watch a Netflix movie. It's okay to rent the extra movie and watch a little more this weekend than you normally would watch. I mean, I told my kids, we're recording this on a Friday. Tomorrow's a Saturday. I told my kids earlier today, I said, hey, be really good today, because tomorrow, all day, cartoons. We're not getting out of our pajamas. We're going to watch cartoons from the time you wake up until dinner. And my 2 little boys,
like that. We've done that every day.
Their eyes lit up like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest day we've ever had.
That's cool.
And because we're just enjoy your family, enjoy the time.
Man, all right. So last question: How do the folks get a hold of you and get a piece of the customer journey?
Yeah, so the best way is to go to my website, joeycoleman.com. That's Joey, Joey, like a 5-year-old, Coleman, Coleman, like the camping equipment, but no relation, joeycoleman.com. You can get the book, Never Lose a Customer Again, on Amazon. We've got it as a physical book. We've got it as an ebook. If you like the sound of my voice on the podcast, we've got it as an audio book that you can download and listen to. And you can listen to me really fast on 2x speed, and I can do the Mickey Mouse thing if you want to do that. Whatever works for you, totally fine. Those are probably the best 2 ways to get in touch. And I will tell you, anybody who has questions, anybody who's curious, send me an email. My email is joeyc, Joeyc, as an abbreviated version of Joey Coleman, at joeycoleman.com, joeyc@joeycoleman.com. And Gino and Jake and I have talked about this before. I have no problem giving out email. Why? Because I know the majority of listeners won't email me. So don't worry about it. If you're sitting at home and you're like, oh, I've got this situation, I'm trying to figure this out, or I'm dealing with this problem, send me an email, explain what the scenario is, and 1 of 2 things will happen. I'll either respond to your email, or I'll suggest that we find a time to connect for a call. If it's something that's too long that I don't want to type out or record a video for you, or I think there's more nuance that I need to know, we'll jump on a call and talk about it. I want to help folks with their customer journey, and I don't believe that the customer journey has ever been more important than it is right now. This is your opportunity. If you say you're the kind of person that believes in your customers, if you have said in your marketing materials, oh, our tenants are like family, we take care of our people, now is the time to prove it. How you act now, how you make your tenants, your customers feel now, will be remembered when we're out of self-isolation. It'll be remembered when we have a cure for this thing. It'll be remembered when we're not in our homes trying to wonder what's going to happen to this world. Now's the time to double down on caring about your customers and your employees.
Sold. G-Dad, final words.
Wow. I just want everyone to go buy the book. Seriously, just start the journey, because it's going to change your business. I'm telling you, Jake, I would have 30 restaurants right now if I'd met Joey a few years ago. I didn't understand how important it was, and I'm a giving person. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to create the framework. I didn't know it was that easy to do. It's not, I'm going to say it's simple, but it's not easy because there's a work involved, but there's actually a framework that's involved. So everybody, you got his email. Don't hesitate. Give Joey a call.
Thanks, guys. Joey, really appreciate your time today. G-Dad, I will see you around.
Thanks, Joey.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening, too.